Hey, Jason here from Simply Swider. So if your microwave keeps tripping the circuit breaker every time you try to use it, don't panic. You're probably looking at a simple $5 to $50 fix instead of buying a $300 to $800 replacement. In this video, I'll walk you through the 5 most common causes, starting with the most likely culprit that I see in about half of all service calls. Before we get started, if you run into any questions, jump into our Facebook group. Links in the description. We've got thousands of people helping each other fix their appliances, and I pop in there daily to help out. So the number one cause I see, and this is probably 40 to 50% of the breaker tripping calls I get, is that monitor switch in the door interlock system. Now here's what's actually happening. There's this little switch called the monitor switch that's designed to short out the power line if the primary door switch fails. It's a safety thing. But when it goes bad, it creates an instant dead short that'll trip your breaker faster than you can blink. I had this customer last month who kept resetting her breaker thinking it was going bad. Turns out she had a habit of yanking the microwave door open to stop it instead of hitting the stop button. Every time you do that, you're creating electrical arcing across those switch contacts, and eventually they weld themselves shut. Don't ask me how I know that, but I've seen it 100 times. Here are the telltale signs of a bad monitor switch. First, the breaker trips the instant you open or close the door, or immediately when you press start. To confirm this diagnosis, you'll need 3 things: a multimeter, a screwdriver set, and about 30 minutes. Step 1, unplug the microwave and wait 5 minutes. Step 2, remove the control panel, usually 3 to 6 screws. Step 3, locate the monitor switch and test for continuity. When the door is closed, that switch should be open, meaning no continuity. If you're getting continuity with the door closed, that switch is toast. Now, here's where most people mess up. They replace the switch but don't check the plastic latch board that holds it. That plastic wears down over time. And if those little ramps are grooved or warped, your new switch is going to fail the same way. You can see me showing this right here on the screen. Look for wear grooves or any play in how the switches mount. Another really common cause, and this one surprises people, is that your microwave is just asking for more power than your circuit can handle. Most microwaves pull between 12 and 15 amps. And if you're on a 15 amp circuit with other stuff running, you're going to trip that breaker. I remember this lady who called me saying her microwave was broken because it worked fine sometimes, but would trip the breaker other times. Turns out she was running her coffee maker and toaster at the same time on the same circuit. That's about 25 amps of draw on a 15 amp circuit. No wonder it was tripping. Here's the thing about older homes. They usually don't have dedicated 20 amp circuits for microwaves like newer construction does. So you're sharing that kitchen outlet circuit with a bunch of other appliances. Easy test here. Try plugging your microwave into a different circuit using a heavy-duty extension cord, just temporarily. If it stops tripping, you've found your problem. The fix is either being more careful about what else you're running or getting an electrician to install a dedicated circuit. That's probably going to run you a few $100, but way cheaper than buying a new microwave when there's nothing wrong with it. Now we're getting into the high voltage components, and this is where things get a little more dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. The HV capacitor stores energy to power the magnetron. That's the thing that actually generates the microwaves. When it fails internally, it creates a dead short either to ground or across the transformer. You'll usually hear this one coming. There's this loud humming or buzzing sound right before the breaker trips or the internal fuse blows. I had this guy last week who said his microwave sounded like an angry bee right before it died. Sure enough, shorted capacitor, safety alert. This capacitor stores enough electricity to seriously injure or kill you even days after unplugging the microwave. We're talking about voltages over 2000 volts here. Before touching anything, you must discharge it using an insulated screwdriver across the terminals. If you've never done high voltage work before, or if that makes you nervous, stop here and call a professional. This repair isn't worth risking your life. To test it, you'll need a multimeter with a capacitance setting, or you can do a resistance test terminal to terminal. A shorted cap will show near 0 ohms. The part itself is only about 15 to $40, so it's way cheaper than a service call if you can handle it safely. The HV diode works with that capacitor to convert AC to DC for the magnetron. When it shorts out, it allows current to flow backwards where it shouldn't, creating a heavy load that'll eventually trip your breaker. This one also gives you warning signs: loud buzzing, burning smell, the microwave stops heating but still runs. Eventually, it'll trip the breaker or blow the internal fuse. The tricky thing is, this can look a lot like a bad magnetron, and I've seen people replace the expensive magnetron when it was just a cheap diode. Testing HV
Turning on the
diodes is a
capacitor.
little different than regular diodes. Most standard multimeters can't handle the voltage, so you need to do what's called a 9-volt battery test. You connect the diode in series with a 9-volt battery and measure the voltage drop. A good diode should only allow current to flow one direction. If you're getting continuity both ways, it's shorted. Good news is these things are cheap, usually 5 to 15 bucks. And since you're already in there with the capacitor work, it's often worth replacing both at the same time. The magnetron is the heart of the microwave. It's the vacuum tube that actually generates the microwaves. When it goes bad internally, it can draw excessive current and trip your breaker. But here's the thing, this is actually the least common cause of breaker tripping. Maybe 5% of the cases I see usually happens from running the microwave empty. That's a big no-no because the energy has nowhere to go and it overheats the magnetron. Age is another factor, or if you get reflected energy from metal objects overheating the tube, you'll hear loud humming, no heat, sometimes arcing sounds. To test it, you check resistance between the filament terminals, should be less than 1 ohm, and from terminals to the case, which should be open circuit. Here's how to decide if magnetron replacement makes financial sense. For countertop microwaves under $200 or over 7 years old, just replace the whole unit. For over-the-range models, repair usually wins because installation runs $100 to $300 on top of the appliance cost. Quick math, if your total repair cost is less than half the replacement cost, fix it. Otherwise, upgrade to a newer model. The door interlock switches, including that monitor switch we talked about, you're looking at about 5 to 25 bucks each. These are actually pretty straightforward to replace if you're comfortable taking the control panel off and can identify which switch is which. The tricky part is making sure you get the right one. There's usually 3 switches and they're not all the same. What I always tell people is don't just replace the bad switch. Check that plastic latch board too, because if it's worn, your new switch is going to fail again in a few weeks. Trust me on this one. I've been called back too many times because someone skipped this step. Speaking of the latch board, that plastic frame that holds all the switches runs about 20 to 50 bucks. It's not a hard job, but you've got to be careful about the alignment. Those switches have to activate in the exact right sequence or you're back to tripping breakers. I had this customer who tried to save money by just replacing the switch, but the latch board was so worn that the new switch lasted exactly 3 days. Don't be that guy. If you see grooves or wear on the plastic ramps, replace the whole assembly. The HV capacitor typically runs $15 to $40, and it's not a super difficult replacement if you understand the safety procedures. But I can't stress this enough. That thing can kill you if you don't discharge it properly. I've seen capacitors hold a charge for weeks after being unplugged. If you're going to tackle this yourself, get yourself a proper discharge tool or use an insulated screwdriver with a resistor. And please, if you're not 100% comfortable with high voltage work, just call a pro. It's not worth the risk. The HV diode is one of the cheaper parts, usually 5 to 15 bucks, and since you're likely already working on the high voltage section anyway, it's often worth replacing along with the capacitor. These things work together, and if one failed, the other might not be far behind. The 9-volt battery test I mentioned earlier is the reliable way to check these. Don't trust a standard multimeter reading on HV diodes. Learn that one the hard way. All right, let's talk about what you're looking at cost-wise if you need to replace parts. The good news is most of these components are pretty affordable, especially compared to a service call or buying a new microwave. Here's what I typically see for pricing and difficulty level. Now, before we wrap up, you can see on the screen right now some of the most common models that have these breaker tripping issues. You might spot your own unit up there. The GE models, especially the Profile series, seem to have this problem more often due to their crowbar circuit design. Frigidaire Gallery models also show up on my service calls pretty regularly with sticky monitor switches. Here's your action plan. Start by checking if other appliances are running on the same circuit. That's a 2-minute test that solves 30% of these problems. Next, listen to when the breaker trips. If it's when opening or closing the door, you're looking at door switches. Only move to high voltage components if those first 2 checks come up empty. Follow this sequence and you'll solve most breaker tripping issues in under an hour. And here's the key thing. This crowbar circuit safety design means when things go wrong, they go wrong dramatically. That violent breaker trip isn't necessarily a sign of major damage. Often it's just a $5 switch doing its job to protect you. If you guys know someone who's having appliance troubles, please send them the link to this video or a link to my channel, where I have tons of other videos showing how to fix pretty common issues with appliances, sometimes for free or as little cost as possible. It sure beats having a repairman come out and spending several hundred for them to fix it when it could be something so simple. If this helped you get your microwave working again, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Let me know which fix worked for you. Really helps other people with the same problem. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We'll get this out to more folks who need to save some time and money. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.